sustainability links to equality, but many studies have proved that equality is also linked to sustainability, because equality itself generates forces towards sustainability, and this includes gender equality. This includes the role of leading women. Well, let's face it, we are still in a man's world, but fortunately, less and less. And fortunately, we have more and more women leading companies and leading institutions, and just leading. We are going to hear, and I'm going to have the pleasure to talk with two Portuguese company leaders. They have asked me to introduce ourselves, and I'll obviously allow them to do that. Let me just say what are their professions. Well, Margarida Couto and Ana Dias Fonseca, and I'll just call them to the stage. Would you please, Margarida and Ana? And as they come, Margarida is a lawyer by a profession. I've met her as a journalist a number of times on the previous years, always in big transactions here in Portugal. But guess what? She also has another role, or another side of the same role, and she will talk to us about it. She's a lawyer, a manager actually, managing partner at one of the top law firms here in Portugal, Vieira de Almeida. And Ana Dias Fonseca is also a top manager. She has been on several companies, and she currently is the CFO at RTP, the Portuguese Public Service Broadcasting Organization. And I will now shut up and allow them to not only present themselves, but to talk to us about not only their experience, but the values that they follow. Margarida and Ana.
Do we have the slides, please? Yeah. Okay, so we can skip this slide because you already told the audience who we are. We have been asked to talk about the advantages, disadvantages, and differences of being a female leader, and there are many, as you will see, and that's exactly what we are going to do in a very, very brief way, because we think that what would be interesting is the conversation with a man.
Hello. One of the first things we would like to talk about is the advantage of being a female leader. And one of the big advantages is to be part of something that is closing the gap of what we call the diversity dividend. And what does it mean? Actually, this came in different studies from McKinsey, Deloitte, and different companies, different regions of the world. That implies it's actually two things. One is closing this gap is important and is really something that the world needs, because the number and the level of education across the world of the women versus men, if it's closing the gap, if we close the gap of the number of women in work, it can increase the GDP, the worldwide GDP. It could reach 28 trillion US dollars, but even if we do a calculation that is much more realistic, it can go and it can sum up until 12 trillion if you compare that, if you consider that each country reached the best of the region, the best country in the region, considering the percentage of women in the workplace, working and producing in this region. So this is the first part. And the second part is this one of leaders. And the leaders being the diversity of being women in leadership, it has also very important results that you can see some of the results that we present here. It actually, it's proven that the companies that have more women on board have higher level of return on assets. So this is financial proven. Also, the profit increase is much higher, considering the gender inequality smallest gap when you have companies that have more women in leader positions, also not only on the board level, but also, and that comes in all the measures of the company that is financial related. And why? We can ask, but is this a coincidence, or why does it happen? And it's important to understand that women have different approaches usually, and it's generally speaking, to the problems. I think the empathy is one of the biggest summaries of the women usually can better put herself in the shoes of the other person, can understand better the client, can understand better the changes in the market. So the complementarity between the characteristics that are more female or male, it's the things, this complementarity can actually add up in value to the companies. That's why it's proven by the numbers, but also understandable why. And that's something that it's for everybody today. I think it's something that the best workers want to be in a place where they can feel comfortable to talk, feel comfortable to have empathy between the teams, and it's absolutely we need women on the leaderships to be sure that this happens.
Well, as I'm a lawyer, I've been asked to talk about disadvantages. She's a kind of journalist, so she talks about advantages. Well, I think that the biggest disadvantage in relation to being a female leader, put in a very simple manner, is that it is more difficult. But the point is that this is nobody's fault. I think, and I've studied a lot about this, I think that the main reason for that relates to cultural factors, to unconscious bias, and these are not things that you change overnight. For instance, when I was born, my mother, according to the law, could not work or travel without my father's authorization. And I was not born 100 years ago, only 50. So it takes time, because it's in fact inside our culture to establish a way of bringing up young women and young men in a different manner. And if I could choose a topic in order to change that, I would choose changing the way the law and society, I'm a lawyer, so I always think about legal solutions, and then sometimes law simply does not help. But in that case, I think that one of the things that could really change this reality is if women stop being seen as the main caregivers, both in relation to children and in relation to their parents or to their parents-in-law. Because in fact, maternity, whether we like it or not, it's still an obstacle in a woman leadership journey, which I find it very, very unfair. And you can overcome it. I mean, I have 5 children, Anna has 4 children, so they don't get in the way, but women think they get in the way. And so I think this is the biggest disadvantage.
And now let's talk about the differences. What are the differences? We are not talking about everything, but we choose two specific topics, and I think we can talk a lot about what generates this difference considering these 2 topics. And the first is why there is this gender pay gap. It's so big, so it's in some countries, and completely developed countries is really something that is still strange. We look to this. In some regions, we can find women doing a lot of the works that are less paid. And that's something that in the total number, if you compare the total women, total men, it explains why the difference occurs. But because they are more in the low-level salary paid. But in countries like Portugal or Germany or all the Western world, where women have more higher education than men, even PhD levels. Why is this gap still happen? And in some countries, as you can see, it's still really big. This we can again explain for a lot of reasons. I think. And that's something that even we women talk a lot. I had always this perspective that I do a good job, so of course people will recognize my work. I don't need to ask, I don't need to explain why I deserve more, because I always trust that the others will recognize my value. And I think we cannot generalize, of course, but I think, at least the people I know, a lot of women and men that I know are really different in this point. Usually, it's not for all men, but usually men ask more than probably they even, I don't know, maybe they think they deserve, and women are exactly the opposite. And this, again, it's a generalization, it's not always the same, it's not always like that, but it's something that is really, we feel this, and the sentiment of, what's the name, imposter, no? We are always questioning if we deserve to be here. So if they say, okay, you have this new position, or here you have a job proposition that is good, and we say, okay, this is great, I don't know if I can do this. And usually all men are much more confident, self-confident, and they ask for more, and it's not enough. And I think this is part of the game. It's not a man's fault, it's not a woman, it's like a generally speaking way of being, and something that I believe that explains part of the difference.
Well, and just to conclude, as Anna said, there are many differences. We just decided to pick these two, but then, of course, Pedro can elaborate and ask for more. But I think that one of the main differences is that women think they have to act differently in order to achieve leader positions. Many women really think that they need to act like men, they need to dress like men, they need to be bossy, they cannot cry, because if they cry, cry would be seen as a sign of weakness. And guess what? It's just the hormones, okay? It's just okay to cry. And I don't have the time, but sometimes when I have more time, I explain why women cry more than men. And it's all about the hormones, okay? So nothing else. And so I think this is also unfair, but this is also, in a certain way, it is also, or not women's fault, but women also contribute to the status quo that we have. Because as Anna said, women don't ask. As I am saying, women think they need to act like men in order to achieve leadership positions. And women hold themselves back in many, many ways. And so I think this is nobody's fault, but it is everybody's responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you both for not blaming me. You emphasize that, in your view, it's not man's fault. It's a cultural problem, and you were very careful on stating that, and on unconscious bias and so on. But in the end, I would like you to develop this, because you didn't blame men, but you challenge women to step up, to speak up, to ask. Do you feel in your organizations that some other women don't do that, and do you encourage them to do that? How does it go?
Anna first?
Yeah. I think it depends really on the organization. Maybe I believe that in RTP there's no difference in considering if somebody speaks, if it's a woman or a man, but there's still a lot of organizations and people that think that if a woman is more aggressive in asking, for example, or in considering herself better than he is thinking about, they hold back and say, oh, this is a very career-oriented, not like a well-behaved woman. And still he is. So we are not saying that it's only our bias that make us not asking. It's also a cultural thing. If a woman speaks more assertive, she's bossy, not saying other words. If a man is assertive, he's a really leader.
Bossy.
So it's bossy, but it's good. So asking, or it's not only because we don't want. We know by cultural, we learn this from our parents, from all the society, that we should be more, more discreet, more discreet. It's a good thing, I think. So don't do your job very well, but don't make a huge thing out of it. And that's I'm not shy, and I'm like that. I said I'm like that. So I think that's still in a lot of people's mind, that if somebody behaves different from this standard, she's very bossy.
You also mentioned that the role of studies that state that in companies that are led by women, or that the leadership is shared, they also have better results, better returns. Do you feel that your role in your companies has caused that, not only because of your specific competence, of course, but also because the fact that you are women has changed the culture and has led to different decisions or decision-making processes?
Well, at least in my case, absolutely. In fact, today I'm here in my capacity as president of GRACE, which is an organization that congregates more than 170 companies that are concerned about sustainability and that have the sustainable development goals at the heart of their concern. And one of the SDGs, SDG 5, is all about gender equality. But as you were saying, I'm also a partner at a large firm in Portugal. And for some reason that I cannot explain, we never felt that problem at the firm, and we have many women that made partners and that have children and families and all that, because sometimes people think that you have to choose. Either you have a career or you have a family, which is a choice that it's not there for men. Men can have it all, and women can have it all as well, but women sometimes think they cannot have it all. So at VDA, I don't feel that, but in many other organizations, I feel that it is difficult the way through, but then when it happens, in fact, the company or the organization becomes more resilient. I'm not saying exactly more profitable, because I mean, there are so many variables that it is difficult to say that it is exactly more profitable. But it is more resilient, it is more diverse in the way of thinking, and then again it goes down to hormones, okay? Because men have a lot of testosterone, as you know, and women not so much. They have other hormones that really make a difference in a room when the level of testosterone is too high. And this is why companies that have a balanced leadership, at least they are more resilient, because men are risk takers, which is absolutely normal. It's about the nature, it's biological, okay? And women are less risk takers. And so the combination of that, especially in turmoil times, has proven that whenever you have a more balanced relationship, the organization is more resilient.
And do you experience that as well in your companies? I'm not asking for secrets, obviously, but in a general way.
I think it's for sure. I've experienced in all the experience from McKinsey, where I start working, and in the beginning, I remember at some point we were only 2 women there, so it was a quite male, and of course the way even the way I worked and I you know, I always I was never wanting to imitate the role model of a man. So the way we naturally interact, of course, changed in different perspectives. And I believe in Portugal Telecom especially, I had different roles, and in human resources, for example, always. Trying, we had this diversity program, special focus on the develop women and special women in technology in the early years, because that's where the gaps are bigger. Women in technology are less. I think it's cultural again. But apart from the initiatives I've developed, there's 2 things important. I think the relation that I had with my teams, the different teams, and the way it was always a celebration when somebody got pregnant, or men no, but when there was a baby announcement of the team, when there was somebody that needs something, the way we worked together as a team, and it was like a team with a very important objectives. But I think it was a human relationship that we created. Of course, there's men that are very good leaders and do the same, but I believe really that something in the general characteristics of a woman that gives more to this good relationship, empathy within the team. People feel comfortable to have that their team there and their network. And again, the role model that we create, being a mother of 4 children and do whatever, a lot of things, it's also inspiring for men and women that are in different positions, and especially for the youngest. I think in all the 3 dimensions, either doing specific laws in the company or acting or being a role model, it's always influencing the way things.
And the gender gap pay that you showed us on a chart of about 50% in the European Union, more than that in Portugal actually. Yeah. How do we, it's not you, it's us, how do we break it, this versus
laws?
Well, we can try to break it through law. I think that law can be a lever, can help, but law is not, it's not the solution. And then again, we need to come back to unconscious bias. I think that one of the reasons why, at least in leadership position, women still get paid less than men, it's again an unconscious bias. It's not something. I never saw a leader either a man or a woman deciding, well, she's a woman, so she's not getting paid as much as a man. In a normal company, in a decent company, this does not exist, okay? But I already saw many men that are gender activists in sense of contributing to equality. And I was in a meeting and I couldn't believe it, but this is a true story, it happened. They were discussing how much they should pay to a certain person that was replacing a man in a leadership position. And I said, but why are we having this discussion? I mean, she needs to be paid the same because she's replacing a man. And this man, which is an activist for closing the gender gap, just said, oh, no, she doesn't need it. Her husband is very rich. And when I looked at him, what did you say? And suddenly he said, oh, sorry, I understand. You see, it's not intentional. It's behind your back. And this is very difficult to overcome. And one of the reasons I think that this is not going faster is because these conversations that we are having now normally are conversations among women and women. Men are not involved in these conversations. I mean, now it's an exception because we are Planetiers and we are different and all that. But normally, when you have a conference about gender equality or gender diversity, 90% of the audience are women. And if we keep that this way, this will not change because we need to rewire inside, and for that we need the man. We need the man in this conversation.
One of the things that you stressed a lot was about maternity. Let me just share this with you. I've witnessed so many times men saying, I was going to hire her or to promote her, but then I knew that she was going to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And men that...
That's why I said, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, that you need to change the law. You need to say that men need to take paternity leave as for the same period as women. Otherwise, you will not hire a CFO if she will get away for 4 months. You prefer a man, it's just normal. Maybe I would do the same decision. I mean, you are running a company. You are not running an NGO, okay? So you need to be rational about your decisions. So if you need to choose between a man and a woman, and she's in the phase of her life where she's going to get pregnant and disappear for 4 months, it's normal that you prefer a man.
But it's wrong.
It's wrong, but it's normal. I mean, it's rational. So you need to stop this idea that women are caregivers, are the sole caregivers. And if the child needs to go to the doctor, it's the mother, it's not the father, and all that. And this needs to change, and the law can not solve it, but can help it.
Yeah. I think it's at some point, and that's one of the examples, but there's other examples, that you need to enforce by doing laws that are not for a common sense perspective, that are a little bit, let's say, not reasonable, like this. Like you have to take maternity leave if you are a parent, or there must be a percentage of women on boards, or a lot of laws that I was against because it was not natural. So everybody should live their life or by it's meritocracy. If I want to be with my kids, I am. If I don't want, I'm not. But if you don't do the laws, the gap will probably never close, or at least will take, I don't know, hundreds of years, I'm sure.
Let's hope it's faster. And
it's a necessary evil.
It's a necessary
evil.
Anna, Margarida, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.